1:15, The Time news this morning that the Higher Education Amendment Bill, which is due to go through the National Council of Provinces, will allow private higher education institutions to call themselves universities. Dr. Felicity Coughlan is the Director of the Independent Institute of Education on the line from Joburg. Dr. Coughlan, good afternoon to you. How big a change is this going to be for those private tertiary institutions?
Well, can I just rewind a little bit on that? The current act also provided for that the criteria were never promulgated. What the amendment bill is proposing is three different types of institutions, being universities, university colleges, or higher education colleges. And what it says is that if institutions, public or private, meet the criteria, then they will be able to use the name. So technically, it is going to be possible for private institutions to be called universities, but only if they meet the criteria of what a university needs to be. So it's my expectation that nothing much is going to change for a good several years because the criteria haven't yet been developed. And then it will be a very positive change for those private institutions that do function more like universities than like colleges.
Does it mean we're going to have a lot more professors in the end? I mean, at the moment we have, 20? I think it might be 22 universities that are allowed to call someone professor. I imagine that we could have a lot more professors at the end of this. Some people might say the title professor could become devalued.
Well, that's exactly why I wanted to point out the fact that it's not as simple as the news reports this morning. It's not a case that private institutions are all suddenly going to be entitled to call themselves universities. There are these three titles, and the criteria against those are going to be very strict. What has been completely, in a sense, unfair and irrational to date is that no private, irrespective of the nature of the way they work, has been able to use the title. But it's a little bit like any assumption that people make that as soon as there's a change, there's going to be a flood. And that's absolutely not going to happen because it's not in anybody's interest to devalue the term university, let alone the term professor. And to be a professor in South Africa has a long and very deep history of academic performance, which quite frankly, most of the privates are some way from being able to achieve, even with their most senior academic staff.
Dr. Felicity Coughlan, thanks very much indeed, Director of the Independent Institute of Education.